What's happening, everybody? On today's show, Jake Crain of Crain and Company is going to join us to talk about the upcoming SEC season. We'll get his thoughts on transfers and adjusting to playing immediately on a new team in a new conference, as we're seeing across the SEC. Also, we'll go around the conference with tidbits around fall camp from Tennessee, Auburn, Arkansas, A&M, LSU, and more, and a fight between Mark Stoops and John Calipari at Kentucky. Locked on SEC starts now.
Are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this year with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Kentucky, as John Calipari was quoted in an article in The Athletic yesterday, as he has his team over in the Bahamas playing some off-season games against different teams. And Calipari said, look, this is a basketball school. Alabama is a football school. So is Georgia. No disrespect to our football team. I hope they win 10 games and go to bowls. But this is a basketball school. This was all behind John Calipari pointing out that he wants a practice facility at UK as soon as possible. Well, Mark Stoops, head football coach, did not take kindly to those comments, quickly responding on Twitter, basketball school? I thought we competed in the SEC, and added the hashtag 4 straight postseason wins. Now, look, is Kentucky traditionally a basketball school? Yes, they are, but you cannot deny what Mark Stoops has done in recent years at Kentucky. A 10-win season last year, had a 10-win season in 2018. Meanwhile, John Calipari's had a lot of early postseason exits as of late, including most recently a loss to St. Peter's in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So, if anything, John Calipari probably going to come back and issue an apology to Mark Stoops. But nonetheless, a little bit of a turmoil there between the basketball coach and football coach at Kentucky. I get it. Calipari wants his practice facility, but you don't need to throw the football team under the bus in order to get your way. So we'll keep track of this feud over at Kentucky and see what happens between Calipari and Mark Stoops. In fall camp news over at Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher meeting with the media, and he was asked for an update on several players, including his quarterbacks. Jimbo Fisher talking about Max Johnson, who's asked if the play calling changes because he's left-handed. Jimbo said no, it's just based on what he can do, what he likes well, what he can do well within the confines of our offense. On Connor Weigman, their true freshman, he said he's still learning the process of the offense and it's going well. He said he's picked it up very well for a young freshman, very intelligent guy, very instinctive guy, very encouraging in his development so far. Now, as for Haynes King, the guy who won the starting job a year ago at Texas A&M, still coming back from his injury, Jimbo Fisher said Haynes King is back, pain-free, throwing and running the football. And said his strength is also back in terms of everything related to his injury. Previously said that all 3 quarterbacks are competitive, but also help one another, and that number of quarterbacks in a competition is somewhat rare these days. We'll see what happens throughout fall camp, who they name the starter at Texas A&M. I've been thinking it was going to be Haynes King again since he won the job a year ago, but some people saying maybe Max Johnson going to be the guy to transfer in from LSU. Over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman and his crew getting ready to raise expectations once again in Arkansas. Big reason for that, their quarterback KJ Jefferson. Sam Pittman on Greg McElroy's podcast this week asked about KJ Jefferson. He said, I think you could tell leadership by the way others look at him, and by the way others treat the guy. Our team knows KJ is the guy. I haven't had to say one time, stay away from the quarterback. They're way away from him. He's comfortable leading being the leader of the football team, and probably more important than anything, the team's comfortable with him, and they show him the respect that certainly he has earned. At the end of the day, Pittman said Jefferson is the same person he's always been. The success he's had has not gone in his head, hasn't changed him one bit. He understands the way he got it was hard work, and that's in the film room, off the field, and on the field. So we'll see if KJ Jefferson can take that next step in his game this year. Over at Georgia, the offense at Georgia looking to build off of what they did a year ago, where they scored 39 points per game, second in the conference. Offensive coordinator Todd Monken talking with the media this week. He said he pushed back on assertions that his offensive philosophy is at odds with that of Kirby Smart when it comes to opening things up. He said, look, I'm paid to score. I'm not paid to win. That's part of that, to score points. But I'm also paid to be responsible to winning. And there's a big part of that where they think that Kirby dictates what we do on offense. No, Kirby does not dictate what we call. He dictates that we be smart. He dictates that we be explosive and that we utilize our personnel and do everything in our power to win games for the University of Georgia. Monken, who's known for his air raid offenses, discussed the importance of a strong run game. He said you can't control the game if you can't run the ball comfortably. You can have a bunch of stats that make it look better, make you feel better. But if you can't run the ball comfortably, you can't win the game. And that's from a guy who wants to throw it. So we will see if maybe Georgia opens it up a little bit more through the air this year with Stetson Bennett back, more comfortable, more weapons with him, with Eric Gilbert now in the fold. But it's still Georgia. They're going to run the football a lot. So get ready for that. Over at Auburn, Zach Etheridge, been around Auburn a long time. He was on the Paul Feinbaum show on Thursday and talked about the offseason turmoil with Brian Harsin. He said, look, Coach Harsin always had conviction of what he believed in. Anytime you go through adversity, it's always tough. Here at Auburn, we preach family. One thing about it, from inside this building and this team and the staff, we're behind Coach Harsin 100%. What he wants to do for this program, and we knew things that were coming out wasn't always the case. It was outside noise. But he said inside this facility, inside the team, guys knew what type of man he is. So you don't wish that type of noise on anyone. It was wrong. It wasn't right. But at the same time, you're going through adversity, you're either going to sink or fail or get back up to the top. He said, I think Coach Harsin put all this behind him, knowing he had people behind him, focus on the ultimate goal is getting the program where he wants it to be. So let's see what Brian Harsin does this year. He takes that next step in year 2 at Auburn. Meanwhile, over at Tennessee, Brew McCoy, former 5-star recruit that signed with USC in the 2019 class, still trying to get himself eligible over there at Tennessee. Wide receivers coach Kelsey Pope says he likes what he's seen so far out of Brew McCoy. He said he's been a pleasant surprise, been really good for a guy who hasn't played football in a season. He's obviously had to build stamina back up. And when you talk about just a physical specimen, some things you can coach, some things you can't. That guy's got a lot of things that you just can't coach. Pope also mentioned the need to polish up the little things with Brew McCoy. So we'll see what happens with him in the coming weeks getting eligible. Over at Missouri, of course, they just named their starting quarterback in Brady Cook, but Eli Drinkwitz said they're having really good competition as they work through their depth chart. He said there are people that are uncomfortable right now on our depth chart, guys that have been on the ones for 2 years, and now they're running with the twos. It's not personal. It's a meritocracy, man. You get what you earn. Just because you've been here doesn't mean you get to just roll in there. You got to produce. You got to perform. And in the past, maybe we didn't have enough depth to get that done. Now we do. So Eli Drinkwitz making it competitive there over at Mizzou. Meanwhile, over at LSU, a little bit of a quarterback injury this week. Garrett Nussmeier suffered a minor ankle injury during practice this week. According to Brody Miller, LSU insider said he isn't expected to miss very much time, but there is a quarterback battle going on. And the latest reports are that Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, is running with the first team at LSU, meaning 6-year senior Miles Brennan, once again on the outside looking in. We'll see what happens with the LSU quarterback battle in the next couple of weeks. But Jaden Daniels, as of now, LSU had to play a game today. It looks like he would be the starter, so we'll continue to track that. Meanwhile, a member of LSU's defensive backs entering the transfer portal, Jordan Tolles, former 4-star recruit out of the Baltimore area, signed with the Tigers in 2019. He has entered the portal. And one quick note in recruiting, Alabama picking up a big-time offensive line prospect in Miles McVay, number 19 offensive tackle in the country. Came into Thursday with a list of schools. He became the 19th commitment for the class of 2023 for Nick Saban, the fourth offensive lineman in this group. Good Lord, 4 offensive linemen already in Alabama's recruiting class. And there you have it. That is the latest news going on around the conference. Thanks again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Jake Crain of Crain & Company. That is coming your way right after I tell you about BetOnline.net. Still the fastest and easiest way for you to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league out there. BetOnline, they continue to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have got you covered. I always tell you, just put it into your cell phone. Make it a bookmark. It should be the first place you go to in the morning to get all the news that you need before you make any betting decisions. Head on over to BetOnline today. You can use your mobile device, learn about all the action happening, and of course, as college football gets ever so closer, they're going to have tons of information there. They've got NFL preseason lines. If you're into betting on the NFL preseason, they've got the lines up for you there at betonline.net. It is BetOnline, and it is where the game starts. Rolling along here from SEC Media Days, and always fun when we catch up with this guy. You know him, of course, years with the J-Boy Show, now Crain & Company, taking the sports world by storm. Jake Crain sitting down with us. Jake, what's up, man?
Chris, first off, that beat was hot. You got me going right there, man.
That is part of the royalty-free beats, my friend.
Oh, well, I tell you, somebody cracked the code on that one. That was like a shot of espresso. I'm ready. I don't know if it's, I'm about to face Papa Doc in a rap battle, or we're going to talk about some football. I'm ready for either one, man. I didn't go to Cranbrook.
Let's jump into it, Jake. For you, the biggest storyline heading into this season of the SEC.
I think it's the depth. We had Mike Leach on yesterday, and the SEC, I think there is a common misconception that the SEC is so top heavy, right? That it's like a one-off. Well, you just got to beat Bama, you just got to beat Georgia. A lot of these coaches wish it was that easy. It's a whole heck of a lot easier for a one-off. It's the gauntlet, and this is what Texas and Oklahoma is going to find out. It's not the Bamas and the Georgias. That's hard enough. It's the Kentuckys. It's the LSUs. It's the Mississippi States. There is no game off outside of Vanderbilt, which is, a Southern term for bye week. But when you look at the teams underneath Alabama and Georgia, because it's going to be Bama and Georgia. Right. That's who's going to play in the SEC championship game. The question is, who takes that next step to say, you know what, we're knocking at the door. We haven't knocked it down yet, but we're knocking it. Whether it's Tennessee, whether it's Arkansas, whether it's Kentucky, whether it's LSU with structure, which to me is the scariest team in the SEC in the next 3 to 5 years. I said that the other day. I'll continue to say that. Yeah, I
was going to ask your quick thoughts on the two new coaches in Billy Napier at Florida and Brian Kelly at LSU. Who has a better record this year?
Oh, BK does. BK's working with a lot more. It's funny. LSU is always so talented. I always say they won a national championship with Les Miles, who I don't know if he ate more of the grass or smoked more of it. And then you got Ed O, who I don't know if he went to half the practices. You got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Just Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and those guys. But when I look at LSU with structure, because why was LSU and Saban such a good fit? And I'm not saying Brian Kelly's Nick Saban, but Saban brought structure to unbelievable athletes in a state that is so talent rich, and there's no competition. Yep. LSU has a monopoly over the state of Louisiana, and they'll go into Florida and they'll go into Georgia and grab kids. It's a national brand, but LSU has a monopoly in one of the most talent-rich states. I recruited the Panhandle. I recruited Louisiana. I recruited New Orleans. I've been to every parish and ward you can imagine to find kids. And Louisiana is just an unbelievable place, and they all love LSU. No kids going to La Tech over LSU. Nobody's going to Southeast Louisiana over LSU. That's no disrespect. That's just how it is. I think they'll tell you that. So, Chris, I think Brian Kelly and LSU this year, I am worried about the quarterback position. I have LSU, I believe, going 8-4, going 4-4 in the SEC. I actually have 3 teams going 4-4 in the SEC West. I think it's going to be a logjam over there. But for the next 3 to 5 years, Brian Kelly is the stepdad that you never wanted, but you always needed. He comes in there and tells you to clean your room, have better friends, do your homework. Oh, you want to cause problems? I'll take the door off the hinges. You have no privacy. And you don't understand it, and you're mad at him, and you don't get it until you're walking across the stage, graduating cum laude from Harvard with a nice cushy jobs at Goldman Sachs, making $200 a year as a 25-year-old. And you say, you know what, Dad, thanks.
I want to ask you this because you're a former coach and you know all about scheme and, certain guys fit certain schemes, certain guys don't. It's interesting to me with what's happened with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You look at LSU, they've added a lot of new guys to that secondary, guys with big accolades. Ole Miss has added a ton from the transfer portal. A lot of schools from the SEC have dipped into it. I just wonder when I look at a guy and go, okay, he was second team all Sun Belt or he was second team all Big 12. That's great. But that doesn't mean the success is going to translate in this system, in the SEC. What's your thoughts on that, on like guys coming in? I mean, obviously you wouldn't recruit them if you didn't think that fit your system, but there's an adjustment phase there.
Yeah, well, we always want to recruit to your system and what you're doing, not just schematically, but off the field too. You want somebody that can fit your wide receiver. You want to be able to run multiple routes and be able to break it off at the top and be a threat vertically, but he also has to be able to get in that locker room and understand, hey, you're part of our culture now. This is how we do things. We have accountability in this, that, and the other. But anytime you're going up a level and college to the NFL, like it's hard to project high school to college. That's why projecting is so hard and it's an inexact science, is you have to see it on the field. Now, when you have somebody, like a Jordan Addison, right, going from like Pitt to USC, that's a little bit different. But when you have somebody like Jaden Daniels, who's coming from the Pac-12 to the SEC, well, the Pac-12 now, the way it's looking, it's not like the defenders get smaller and slower.
Right.
So I have to see it on the field, and they'll know in practice. And that's why, again, if you make practice more important than the game's a whole heck of a lot easier. But until those lights are on, until it's game time, until you're having to make that throw in front of 100,000 people, because some guys are different when those think about environments.
Yeah.
A little bit different playing, and I know Arizona State's a party school and all that stuff, but it's a little bit different playing at Arizona State and playing, Washington State at home than having to play Bama in Death Valley or going to Kyle Field, places like that. So it's an amalgamation of things. That's the biggest word I know I have to use. I haven't used it all week. It's an amalgamation of all those things coming together, and you don't know until you know.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like we've seen a lot of guys transfer from SEC to SEC. So, I don't think
like Eli Ricks, you know what you're getting.
He's fine. Zach Calzada played at A&M. He's going to Auburn. If he's the guy, he's not going to be overwhelmed. But I look at a guy like Mekhi Garner, who goes from ULL, who was great in the Sun Belt, but now he's coming to LSU, the big lights, the bright lights. Suddenly you're defending Bama receivers and Georgia receivers and all that. I just wonder, will it translate immediately?
Well, I think, Chris, when I look at it, it's a little bit different at the skill positions than it is up front. Like that stuff worries me more up front because there's a lot of guys running around in the Sun Belt at receiver that can come to the SEC and it'll translate.
Right.
There's a lot of guys in the WAC playing running back that can come in the SEC and it'll translate. The ones that fascinate me are the defensive ends, or the defensive tackles, or the Mike linebackers, or the guards, because now you are consistently going up against NFL players every week, and typically they're huge, and if they're not huge, it's even scarier because that means they're so good they still have to play and they're undersized.
Right.
You look at a guy like Aaron Donald, who's not massive, who's not humongous, but he's unbelievably good at what he does. So I think more about it up front than I do in the secondary. Now,
so Osiris Torrance goes from Louisiana to Florida.
That's exactly
right. You think he'll have a transitional phase?
There will be a transitional phase, but I will say this, to your point, I'm not saying that it's just easy to translate wide receiver or DB from the Sun Belt to the SEC, but I think it's easier than it is up front. Now, when you have guys that are consistently running 4.3 and consistently running 4.4, and you go from being maybe a guy that was never challenged because they didn't want to throw at you in the Sun Belt to now the guy they want to pick on because they don't know if you're a first-round corner like the other guy is, I think that kind of changes the game a little bit too. So it's fascinating to me to see this transfer portal, but I do not like the interconference transferring. I think that should be against the rule. The fact that Eli Ricks can go from LSU to Alabama without sitting out is absolutely ridiculous.
I guess the only positive is the new coaching staff. But what if there wasn't a new coaching staff? He's got his LSU playbook. He can just bring it over to Alabama. Hey, here's what I have.
Like they were like, okay, well, the coach left. So it's funny you say that because I laid out, probably a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, what my transfer portal rules would be. You get the one free transfer. And if you take the one free transfer and you go to another place and that head coach leaves, then you should be able to transfer.
Right.
I feel like if the head coach leaves, not the DC, not the wide receivers coach, if the head coach leaves, you should be able to transfer wherever. But if that head coach does not leave, and you're going to use that one-time transfer rule. I do not like being able to go from LSU to Bama and not sit out a year. To me, we have got to get away from that, because you want to talk about tampering, it opens up. I mean, you think Pat Narduzzi was mad at Lincoln Riley? They're in two different conferences. Imagine all of a sudden a Tennessee kid being taken by a Georgia kid.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, Alabama goes and gets the best offensive lineman that Vanderbilt has.
Right.
If I'm Clark Lee, I'm like, man, I got to recruit my own team against Bama. Like, I'm not going to win that. I don't care how good we are in the debate club.
Yep. He is Jake Crain. Couple quick thoughts. Is it Alabama, Georgia, and Atlanta once again?
I mean, yes.
It's hard not
like,
to.
I want to come on here and you know, I'm not one of these people that's like, you know what? South Carolina, give me, you know. But it is what it is. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be Alabama and it's going to be Georgia, and they're probably both going to be undefeated in the SEC. Now, I think Alabama's going to beat Georgia, because I think Alabama may have the best team they've had in the last 3 to 5 years, which are 2020 was obviously pretty special, but as a total team, the most talented offense, defense, and special teams that they've had in the last 3 to 5 years. I think they play Ohio State in the Natty, because I think Ohio State's 13 flavors of pissed about what happened last year. I think they beat them, but C.J. Stroud wins the Heisman. So I'm just going to say every prediction I have.
He is Jake Crain, having great success with Crain and Company. Talk a little bit about the show and how much fun you're having doing it.
Man, it's been unbelievable. You know, we were with Colin Cowherd, and which was awesome. Colin was great. We were renegotiating our contract, and then Shapiro reached out to me and was like, hey, man, we want to do a national sports show. Would you guys be down? And it's just been fantastic. You know, I love living in Nashville. We've been so blessed. The people we work with, whether it's the crew, whether it's Jeremy Boring, whether it's Caleb Robinson, whether it's Candace, all these people, that they've been incredibly welcoming. And it's fun because we're kind of different than everybody at the Daily Wire. Like, we rarely talk. We only talk anything political when it intersects, you know, like NIL and stuff like that. So we're not out here trying to tell you what bill to vote on. Again, you know, I'm a coach, a player and a coach. Blaine's a player and a coach, and Cone played quarterback at Michigan. So we just love talking sports. We talk a little bit of everything. And, you know, we're not sitting here trying to tell you how terrible America is or any of that stuff. We're just talking sports and having a good time.
Jake Crain, always good to see you, man. Congrats on all your success.
I'm just trying to get like you, dog. I appreciate you having me on as usual, man.
All right, we'll be back right after this. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Again, my thanks to Jake Crain from Crain and Company. And thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen. Check out some of our other great podcasts like Locked On LSU, Locked On Bama, Locked On Bulldogs. We got you covered just about every school you want covered. We've got it for you in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be back next week with some more great guests counting you down to the start of an SEC football season, which is right around the corner. Remember to subscribe. Check us out on YouTube as well. We'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.